Joining me is the country's top finance writer, Terry McCrann of the Herald Sun. Terry, how important is it to our economy to please China enough that it now drops these trade bans?
Well, let's be very clear, Andrew. There was one strong person in that room today, and there's one strong person in the room more metaphorically, and that is certainly not Albo, and it is certainly not Australia. China is the giver and taker in this relationship. It gives us what it wants to give us, and it takes what it wants to take. And what it wants to take is primarily iron ore and coal. Now, in the case of coal, yes, on the surface it put bans on the import of steaming coal. That's the coal that goes into power stations. But it kept buying our coking coal. That's the coal that goes into steel mills, along with the iron ore, which is the big item that it buys from us. And it was not only kept on buying from us, it was prepared to pay those record high prices because it wants our iron ore and it wants our coal. So it will take what it wants. It put bans on things like barley and wine, which are very important to the people that were producing it in Australia, but they were small beer in the scheme of things. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, where in the case of iron ore and coal, we're talking literally hundreds of billions of dollars. So the bottom line in all this is that we can do everything that we think we can do to persuade China. We can play tough, we can play nice, but it makes absolutely no difference. At the end of the day, China will give what it gives and takes what it takes, and we have to cop it. And it's the most important customer Australia has. If China decided not to buy our iron ore and our coal, it would, I was going to say use the word destroy, and I don't think that's too big a word, destroy the Australian economy. We think we've had some tough times. Wait and see what happens if China ever did that.
Well, talking about destroying something, Terry, I want to ask you something else about this Victorian election. Premier Daniel Andrews is trying something that no other state has done. Now, he says that selling off the old State Electricity Commission, which produced electricity for decades and decades, was a mistake. He wants to now nationalise Victoria's power supply again, effectively, and himself run the state on green energy, no coal. Here he is last week.
Bring back the SEC. Our electricity should never have been privatised. It was. Those companies have made their money out of all of us and now they're leaving. And we've got a plan to replace them with government-owned renewable energy to put people before profit and to put downward pressure on people's power bills.
Terry, I think this is the most dangerous promise in the entire election campaign. It could not only destroy the state's economy, it could also hurt many other states, their electricity supplies. Your reaction?
Well, Andrew, I didn't know what I was more staggered by, his chutzpah or his totally tin air to talk about having a new SEC when he spent his entire policy program destroying exactly what the old SEC had built and given Victoria, which was for 60 years safe, plentiful, cheap and reliable power. That was coal-fired power out of the brown coal in the Latrobe Valley, all of which Daniel Andrews, whether he had still been the owner of the SEC, would have wanted to destroy and is in the process of destroying. And the idea of replacing this with so-called wind and solar, so-called renewable energy, Sir John Monash, who created the SEC, would be spinning in his grave. We could get more electricity from Sir John Monash if we could only tap it. We're at the total chutzpah and extraordinary offensive comment that we get from Dan Andrews wearing an SEC label.
I find it absolutely astonishing, and Victorians will wake up to this con. It is a con. With a hell of a hangover, because this is really going to hurt. Terry McCrann, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.